And hello, everyone. Welcome to the somewhat delayed, courtesy of Zoom briefing. And as I see people coming in, that's excellent. Tonight we have as our co-host Dan Early, the inimitable bearded man from Virginia. It's the good luck beard. We're stuck with it.
Yes.
Water is the new gold. And we've been making the point that we are the world's only vital, scarce, and recession-proof market. I don't think I have to overdo it for this audience. We'll be getting into it a little bit later. This is important. As a public company, we have to couch our forward-looking statements with all kinds of conditional statements. And all that means is that we have to make sure that these things are accurate as we know. But of course, we don't necessarily know the future. We do our very best, however. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little video. This is a draft. All right, so this video is a draft that's been created just to give you an idea where the messaging is going. So please excuse the fonts. They're not there where they're supposed to be, but I think it's pretty cool anyway. So as you see, we are still working on the fonts and the spacing and so forth, but it gives you a basic concept. Okay, well, yesterday we filed the second quarter numbers, and of course, we also reported on the entirety of the second half of 2020. So what's all this hard work been adding up to? First of all, for the 3 months ended June 30th, revenue increased by 4%, so just over $1 million. $1 million is our magic number. So that's really roughly where the second quarter was for last year, 4%, not much of a difference. But here's the great part is it's this entire 6 months, 22% up. And this didn't necessarily reflect right off because revenue is a very special thing in a public company. It's recognized not when the cash comes in, but when certain milestones are met. And so this is a very voodoo thing, which unfortunately, a lot of us don't even learn until the quarter is over. But 22% revenue increase is significant. Also, a very good improvement for the first half of 2020. Dan, I think you're part of this success story, so thank you. Also, I'm never allowed to mention revenue without talking about operating costs. We are still negative. The good news is that loss from operations has narrowed. And essentially, we've reduced operating costs by $500,000 or a full $1 million for the year if you do pro rata, which is wonderful. That's cuts it by about a third. At this rate, we're going to be in great shape at the end of the year if the trend continues. So that's really good news. We've been spending money to develop new programs while the guys and gals in Texas and in Virginia work the day-to-day, and they're contributing the revenues. But it's wonderful to see that operating costs are dropping at a pretty significant rate. That's not quite $500,000, but it's pretty decent. Okay, so that's that picture. Now, conclusions. Extra management attention appears to be paying off. Tom, what is your impression of the effect that Tom has created by his involvement in the last year and a half?
Tom's been very instrumental in really helping bring the organization to the operating systems. His focus on the day-to-day minutia that's all a part of running a water business, all of that has been just absolutely instrumental making the company work more efficiently, working cohesively as team members, admin, finance, all of those things.
God, it's too bad he's on staycation right now because he could hear all this stuff, but sorry, Tom.
He deserves a vacation. He's been he's worked very hard for the last 8 to 10 months.
No question about it. He's been really dedicated. So from our point of view, a COVID-related crash does appear remote, which really concerned us for a long time, as it should everyone. We're above it last year, and most business activity that we're seeing in Texas and elsewhere seems to have adapted. So third quarter is looking good based on the bidding activity. COVID catch-up seems to be a factor. Just tell me a little bit, Dan, just about what you're seeing with bidding activity, what's happened in the recent, like this week, for example.
So this week's been very, very positive. Over the last 2 days, I've had the opportunity to participate in a number of new opportunity calls with consultants, specifying engineers, working with some very substantial water projects. One particular customer today, I was in Florida, had a lengthy conversation about a project that for us would have an equipment value somewhere between $500,000 to $750,000.
Nice.
The frequency of those conversations that I'm having is increasing. It increases month over month, week over week. So I'm very pleased, very positive. There is absolutely no lack of opportunity. Demand for water equipment is as high as I've ever seen it in the last 25 years.
Wow. That is for a chief engineer to say that. If I say it, of course, I'm a CEO and you have to, maybe say, well, he's being optimistic, but that is amazing because you've been around for quite a while.
Yeah, I have been. And like I said, there's no lie to this. There's no fib to it whatsoever. It is real. The focus on decentralization is two things. Water is absolutely, totally essential to everything that is in a modern environment and a modern civilization like what we have here in the United States. That and the drive towards decentralization, that continues every year. You're seeing it continue to increase and increase and increase. You put those two factors together, and that's why we're seeing so much demand. It is, even in light of the COVID issue, in the last 6 months, it continues, the demand and inquiry, just the interest and the need for it just continues to grow.
Yes, and I think you can also, you've been watching some of the traffic about the pool preserver. That's generating some traffic from the outside.
It has. This week, I do know that we were able to interview and meet with several very, very interested prospects. Tom, if he were with us tonight, he would be able to comment further and in more clarity, but it does look like we have a couple of pending purchases for the pool preserver technology. And that, even though that is not a mainstream fundamental type water technology, it is wholly water related, wholly related to the real estate industry. The demand and the interest in that product is really taking off. It's increasing week over week as well.
Yes, and the sole method of promotion has been this briefing, which is pretty astonishing. We've had some good people come on board. Ross Leisinger, who's been a 10-year fan of the company, has received a quote this week. So that's amazing. So I'll talk more about Pool Preserver, but we are reinforcing the trend, like we're discussing. I think we all know that we're getting more sales engineers in McKinney, and Tom is working on processes like the customer relationship management system, Salesforce automation, et cetera. We're also working on improving the accounting processes to be more efficient. So overall, we're just going as fast as possible. So that is great. Now, speaking of Pool Preserver, the leads are streaming in. About half seem to be well qualified. So they get a straight quote and they go straight into it. Now, the rest need help. And I'm going to play a video, talk a little bit about what we've gone ahead and approved. And so this will give you a visual a little bit on what Tom Burton of LeadSmart, Tom Burton and Kevin Brown proposed that we're going to go ahead and do, because I went ahead and approved it today. So here we go.
I wanted to walk through a little bit of what I'm looking at here, bigger picture, because I think it's important if we're going to look at kind of the water as a career, as a funnel, and then what we would need to do. And then I'll lay out some of the projects that would need to get done and who we would want to have do them. So first of all, we're going to need a landing page that, any of the candidates that we bring in, whether it's through email or Facebook, also Craigslist, I have found to be a good place for business opportunity leads, if the ad and everything is framed right. So anyway, however they come in, they come to a landing page, and there would be some simple, basic overview of what the opportunity is, and then just the ability for them to enter their name and so forth. Then we would actually want to take them into is kind of the step 2 of the funnel, is log them into our portal. And I actually, look at this as kind of an LMS or a learning management system or a learning portal. And the reason is that it's going to qualify. And I've learned this from doing quite a few business opportunity campaigns, is there's a lot of people that are just kind of looking for jobs. So you have to constantly be qualifying who's willing to take the next step, and before you try and get people on the phone and waste, people on phone time. So the next step would be to get them to log in to our portal and then walk through a more detailed video of the opportunity, and then fill out a detailed questionnaire about themselves and their qualifications and so forth. So again, step 2 on the funnel here from this first page, which is just a landing page. If everything looks good on that questionnaire, then we would have them schedule a Calendly call. And at that point, it would make sense for somebody to have a conversation with them. But we don't want to do that until they've gone through these steps. Assuming that they pass and that they're qualified, then there's 3 other basic areas that we would want to get them trained on once they get signed up. One would be just the overall technology. How do they use the technology, the system, and so forth for doing the cleaning? The second is how do you run the business and just set up a business, whether that's part of their own business or they're doing it somewhere else. And then I separated out marketing just because it's as big enough of its own category in and of itself to warrant its own university. And that would be how they would get clients and tools and best practices and so forth and so on. So this would all be part of this box here is basically a learning management system. I like Teachable. I've used that a lot, and it can be set up quickly. And I think it would facilitate very nicely what we need to do here. Then if they really go, well, I want this done for me, so I don't want to do the marketing myself, then we can have an option for them to have the marketing done for them as sort of a service. Or again, the marketing university would teach them what to do. And also we would provide them links to tools and some discounts possibly on marketing automation tools, CRM, through my company, LeadSmart, which by the way, LeadSmart Solutions and LeadSmart acquired my social marketing noise company a year or so back. So that's why you see that there. I do my business under LeadSmart now. Anyway, we have some tools and capabilities that we could provide to them as well, if they, again, wanted to buy those as an add-on, or if they don't and they already feel like they know what they're doing, they would just go through the university course and go from there. Okay, so, and then all of this, we would want to be able to have visibility on, be able to track what they're doing, and obviously look at how we're growing the business and having oversight as to how they're growing the business and so forth. So all of this we would want to have our ability to view and have access to. So the different projects that come out of that picture is 1, the landing page. So we have to create the landing page. 2, we'd have to set up the learning management system. Again, I use Teachable, but we don't have to do that, but I found that to be quick and easy and works really well for what we're trying to do here. We set up the questionnaire, opportunity walkthrough and questionnaire, set up of the business and technical universities, set up and build out of the marketing universities, including the content. So the content for the business and technical universities would obviously have to come from people on your end. The content on the marketing side can come from my end. And then the done for you service catalog. So what would be the catalog of items that we would offer to them? The marketing toolkit, what would we offer to them there if they wanted to add on to those? And then overall, what we would do to drive traffic and lead generation into the landing page. So that's the traffic that we're doing on our side. And then the overall, as I said, kind of that blue box, the community management, where we're managing that community of people that have decided to embrace the water as a career path, and how do we build that community and really make sure that they're thriving and doing what they need to do.
And just to let you know, we have in fact approved this. So this, when we ask you to invest, you're really funding this kind of activity, because this is capital that allows us to develop not only this business opportunity specifically with Pool Preserver, but the template for all the future ones. You know about the animal farm treatment systems called Ponster, the trailer park, all that stuff. These are all going to be future business opportunity type water as a career templates. They will sell systems. So Dan and the team in McKinney, Texas will benefit from the sales of equipment. And of course, there'll be revenue to Origin Clear for all of this university stuff and so forth. And so, you know, investing in this is key, and you make it possible. So again, I really appreciate you guys who are in there investing and making it happen. It is beyond cool. All right, moving on here. So now we're going to play a video montage with Ryan Kustra. I misspelled that as Koistra, as the pioneer. And then we got a couple testimonials. This is just our videographer, who happens to be my brother, Steven, who's a world-class Hollywood editor and director, did a field trip this week. And this is a quick montage from what he did. So without further ado, I'm going to play that for you.
I was profitable my first month. I was making money before even my first lease payment was due. I had more than enough in reserves to make that payment and pay myself back and buy supplies and pay for gas and go to dinner. And if this COVID wasn't here, I'd go to Disneyland, but.
And they're doing a lot of right things, and they're making it easy for the regular investor to take a stab at getting involved at a time that water all over this world is getting to be looked at as a very necessary commodity.
My lovely wife Linda here is so tight. She's not going to jump into anything. She looks it over very carefully, and it's just been a great match for us so far. It's been consistent, it's been very lucrative, and it's been very fulfilling, because we actually feel like we're doing something for the economy.
An ongoing revenue stream allows you the flexibility to start redirecting things and adjusting if there is a new lifestyle or something that needs to be addressed.
Where Origin Clear got involved and made it extremely easy, rather than me spending well over 6 figures to try and come into this industry, purchase something. I got a bulletproof process. Jumping into it, understanding it, have all the right tools and equipment makes it very easy, takes the guesswork out of it. Training was awesome. I loved it. Get to talk to customers, get to talk to people, even during this COVID time. You know, it's just been a great experience.
A little taste of what's going on. As you can see, our investors are very happy now. They're being tagged Philanthro Investor, as you saw, because this is part of our program to expand internationally into the Philanthro Investor Ambassadors. That's that wonderful group that has ended up on the Inc. 100 now, because almost 4,000% growth, and we're tapping into that. So that's why you see that particular branding. I love the name anyway. It's really doing. I better get it straight. Doing well by doing good. Right, Ken? I got to get that stuff straight. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of this. And, what are we doing here? The important thing, because as you saw, about half of the leads that we get are people who need help, who don't have great credit. They can't go ahead and lease or buy the unit. So what do we do? And that's where we set up a marketplace. And this is what we're working on continuously in background, which is so promising, right? First of all, I just want to make it clear that this water investment per se is not being made as an offer right now. We are internally funding pilot projects, but also exploring partnerships, and we will be rolling this out, but it's not a current offer. Now, again, why do we have, in general, alternative investments? But right now, me as a stock market investor, I'm not selling my Origin Clear stock. It's sitting there at the transfer agent, and I'm happy for it to stay there. But I'm very paranoid about everything else. And I sold out of a couple of other stocks this week. I'm like, ugh. And bought money in markets, and other people are claiming a dollar crash is on the horizon. Timing tip, we believe that it will happen after a euro crash, so it won't happen right away. But it is driving demand for these passive or alternative investments where the investor gets cash and can look to an asset for protection. But this hasn't worked out so well lately in real estate, oil and gas, and even solar, which all have had problems. Water is not the same. Can water do better? Absolutely. Here's a few percentages. We feel quite sure that we can get right up there in the double digits if we have the right package. What we learned in the last month or so was that if we tried to offer financing at a high return for the investor to someone who could get good financing in the market, we would end up being shaved. It just wasn't worth it. We're not a Wall Street player. So what we really are there to play in is these special situations, as they're called, where you finance something as part of a business opportunity. And for example, Ryan Kustra in his video was really talking about how he didn't have to come up with 6 figures up front to finance the thing. It's not a cheap unit, and he got a good rate. It was not, he could have perhaps gotten lower, but he got all this training and setup and so forth. He got put into a career, and so it was worth it. And that's where really we can play with these investments. Also, water investments do good. It clearly is beneficial to the planet. There's this concept of environmental, social, and governance investments, which is basically a company achieves that rating and they become much more attractive to investors. Currently, it's about $18 trillion marketplace of assets under management. It's growing to 150 trillion. Amazing. So this is a huge marketplace that we are stepping into, but we're making very sure that we're not in the commoditized, just general good finance market. We're really talking about helping people develop a water as a career, and that justifies the higher returns for us. Okay, potential is, of course, that the investors in this water as a career program could benefit from retained ownership. So they get this first year accelerated depreciation, which is known as Section 179. That means that they can take a tax write-off in the first year of their investment. It does wonderful things for the returns on investment. Of course, these are generally mobile systems so that you can actually take them back. They're not stuck in the ground like an apartment building. And of course, the BizOp, quote unquote, value add program, where we add value through creating the business opportunity, creates a potential for double-digit capital rates. A capital rate, of course, you divide your net income by your original investment, and you get a percentage, which should be in double digits for it to work. Now, we're not making an investment offer. Right now, you can only invest in Origin Clear Company offerings. What are these? Well, let's talk about it. First of all, tying it all together is us. We have invested a lot of money over the years to create an international network of partners, very select. We've got primarily Spain. We've got a couple partners in Europe, Spain, Romania. Then we have the Middle Eastern, the largest oil service company in the Middle East as a partner for that area, in addition to our partnership in Oman. And then we've got a wonderful partner in India who is in charge of Asia. We are pulling out of China in terms of a direct operation and relying on India more. We have the ability to develop product lines, for example, this pool preserver thing. And now we're piloting this water as a career and these potential alternative investment vehicles. Okay, we call it the Origin Clear Wave. And here's a picture of our manufacturing. On the left is the man whose beard has only grown. This is back when he was relatively clean shaven. Now he's turned into the COVID recluse. And then in the middle is Mark Stevens, who is just a wonderful, does amazing work. And then myself showing off for the camera. And then this is the great patented technology that Dan has brought to the table. This is a pump station. Am I right, Dan?
That's correct. That is the Veramod pump station product line.
Veramod is what it's called, exactly. So there it is being delivered. And people are chatting, so let me just check here. So China has our tech. Haha. Well, fortunately, China did not do a great job of stealing our tech, but we found, it's Kenneth Bogert is saying, so China has our tech. And I would say that that is something that we feared, but that here's what we did with our technology. All the early technology, we decided because of the rip-off potential to simply make it open source. And then we pulled back so that everything we do now is what's called trade secrets. And we feel it's much more defensible than the patent system, with China being roving around. Not being in China does not prevent China from stealing our technology, right? It's still out there. They are able to look on everywhere. But really what we found in China was that it's not a very great environment for us. And we've actually made a lot of money from our relationship with Permionics. They've given us business that we've built in the United States from their own work. So all in all, we like the relationship far more. Now, Daryl says, have you thought of LinkedIn with reference to the BizOp promoting? Absolutely. LinkedIn is fantastic. The one thing you know about LinkedIn, though, is that you're just as liable to be pitched as to pitch others. But there's ways to filter that out. Daryl, I think you're absolutely right. Okay, so moving on here. How do you invest in Origin Clear? Because remember, you're making all this stuff possible. You'll help us develop Water as a Career for the COVID-hit workforce, which 80,000 businesses have gone belly up permanently, of which 60,000 are small businesses. And we have this developing this alternative investment and value-added water system rentals. Value-added means we do more than just rent the water system. We help people succeed. That's really the goal here. And so when an investor comes in and says, okay, I will finance this, and remember there's a big footnote here about it's not, no guarantees, blah, blah, blah. But basically, once we develop the legal side, which is really why I keep disclaiming this, then the alternative investor can say, okay, I'll go ahead and invest in this machinery, which I'll retain, et cetera, and I'll be able to get good double-digit returns because Origin Clear is making sure that this thing works, that this person, this business entrepreneur is trained, et cetera, as you saw. You'll see that in this investment, you get paid to wait. You qualify for double-digit dividends. I'll show you that. And for accredited investors, you get to choose your stock conversion. You will also join the growing International Water Philanthro Investors Network. I can tell you that we have been flooded with interest from, Ken just spoke to someone in Spain, for example, today, who came to us through the Philanthro Investor Network. That is moving very, very quickly. Now, if you're not accredited, we just relaunched this offering, and I will show you the circular momentarily. But basically, it's 10% per year, and you invest $500. It's all done online, and you can only invest 10% of your income or your net worth. Accredited investors don't have a limit, but this is not perfect for the accredited investors, and I'll show you why. But for people who would like to just make a nice, simple investment, not risk a lot of money, this is great. They make their 10%, and when we redeem at our option, then we have to repay you 150%. So if you put $1,000 in, we have to repay you $1,500. Now, how can you get out of the stock? Well, you can sell the stock. And to help you do that, we do plan to list it on the over-the-counter exchange. And that would be after the offering is over. And while it's not guaranteed, it is definitely something we plan to do. Okay, let's take a look at the offering circular while we're at it, because I think that's worth looking at. So here it is. This was filed. It was actually yesterday, it was up and running. What are we offering? It's about $20 million. And I'm going to go ahead and roll down to, well, first of all, the summary. So what are we doing here? 10% dividend, repayment at $37.50, which is 150% of the stated value. That's basic. It's a very simple offering. Now, what we did remove, and why we were not in market for a while, was there was at one time an ability, people were only being repaid 100%, not 150%, but they could turn it into common stock. Well, we started to realize that people were starting to use it as an ATM. They would put the money in, and then because it was free trading stock, they were then able to sell it. And as no, we agreed very much with the SEC that this should not go on. The SEC has been extremely helpful. This thing was only, I think it took them only about a couple of weeks to look at it. So they have been very, very helpful. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you was the use of proceeds. What do we plan to do with this? Well, assuming that it's 100% subscribed, you have expenses of about 2.3 million. In other words, about 15% of the total. And then we want to make some acquisitions. We want to hire more personnel, do events and conferences. I guess they'll be virtual for a while. Put in software, R&D, et cetera. This is the financing of end user system sales. This water is a career thing. And then clean up our debt, which is going to be fantastic for the balance sheet, and do some redemptions of some of these notes that have been out to investors. So this is going to be very, very productive for the balance sheet overall. So that gives you an idea of what's going on. Now, this is all online. I'll give you an example of what it looks like right here. This is what the form looks like. You go ahead, it's just very simple, 10% dividend. You put in your basic information, and then this anti-money laundering requirement, and then financial qualification to ensure that you're allowed to do this. You can invest by credit card, debit card, whatever. And that's it. It's very simple. And when you're done, you're done. So and we have an excellent team in customer service. In the first month that we did it in May, we learned a lot. We raised about $200,000, and we learned a heck of a lot about how to do this. So this is technically launched. We're in the middle of putting together the marketing funnel, and you'll hear a lot more about it. So that is the picture there. I'm going to go back here to wrap up. What about if you're accredited or a non-US investor? Remember, the unaccredited round is not for non-US. It's only for US at this time. What does that mean? That means that you can invest in this one without having to prove you're accredited if you're offshore. There's rules about that, which Ken Berenger will be happy to tell you. Public company. So you get 12% annual yield, 8% cash, 4% stock, paid quarterly. And we've had more than 30 months of dividends paid, so we're very good with that. 25%, if you invest 100,000, or let's say, 20,000, for example, if you invest 20,000, because we'll break the 100,000 down, then 5,000 of it you get as additional stock. Now, here's the interesting part. Your investment can be redeemed at any time for twice the value in stock at the price then. Now, the stock price has been very stable lately, and we're very happy with it. But let's say it went down, well, you would be adjusted for that. You'd receive more stock when the time came to sell. So it's relatively protected. All stock investments involve risk. But as you saw from the testimonials, we have some very, very happy investors who have been doing this for years. That's the offering there, and it's extremely popular. Now, how can we possibly offer to redeem 200% of stock? Well, the fact is that we have seen the stock price rise. In fact, I'm going to ad lib quickly and show you the what we call the trade value graph, which is very interesting. The stock liquidity, and it shows you really the trend of what's going on with the stock. I'm jumping out of the PowerPoint, but you'll find this interesting. Here's what we see. Look, shares traded in the second quarter and July of the third quarter, and we have here the shares traded is rising, but importantly, the trade value is increasing. In other words, shares times the stock price. And what it is that the stock price has been stable. And because the volume has been increasing, so we're up to 4 million shares a month, about 1 million shares a week, this is really a lovely trend. And if we extend that trend out to the end of the year, now that's strictly, speculative, right? I'm going to type this in right here. Speculative. So you know that I'm not trying to pull one over you. But if we continue the trend, then we'll be at 15 million shares being traded, or $1.2 million per month. Now you're starting to have the kind of liquidity you need, and that's on the current trend. Now, we believe that trend will accelerate because as we start, for example, demonstrating that this Airbnb for water concept works, well, Airbnb is a $35 billion company. Again, we're not saying we will be, but I think we'll be more than $1 million, which is the current range we're in right now. So that's what that's about. And I've got some chats here. Let me see Caitlin Reynolds wants to know, I know this is all about investment, but where can I get the information to order a water for personal use? We currently don't sell personal use water, but we work primarily with commercial. For example, we've been talking about this premium hotel chain. Well, that we've been making sales to that chain, treating their water in the hotels. Can't talk about specifics yet. Okay, Trevor wants to know, how is this part of the company and stock offering associated with OCLN stock listed? Okay, he's talking about the unaccredited or Regulation A offering, and that is a special Series M preferred share. It is not OCLN stock. It's $25. Well, we know we're not at $25. Why? Because it's strictly a bond. When we do list it as we intend to, assuming we do, it will be listed as OCLN M or whatever, right? It'll be a special thing. So that's what that is. Here's your contact numbers to dial, but the easiest way is type oc.cold/Ken in your browser, and you will magically end up scheduled for an appointment with him. Remember that there are disclaimers that these are not, Regulation D is not a registered offering, and it does involve risk, of course. And the Regulation A disclaimer, you must study the offering circular, which I showed you, which is on the SEC site called EDGAR. And if you look up Origin Clear EDGAR in Google, boom, you will see that listing, and you'll be able to look up the offering circular. Well, that is it. I wanted to thank you all for joining us. It's been amazing. Dan, thank you for joining us. I'm very happy with how things are going. We're cooking along. So join us next week. We're going to have more to tell you about developments. As Ken says, accredited investors should go to oc.gold/Ken. If you're unaccredited, we will be sending you links. Next week, I hope to open up that marketing to you. So again, thank you very much for joining us. It's been wonderful. I think we're going to end up with a great Q3, and I love your support. Have a great weekend. Dan, stay cool, calm, and collected. Bye-bye now. Take care.